All right, today we're tackling a huge question, one that's right at the heart of the climate debate. Is capturing carbon from the atmosphere our best hope for a cleaner future? Or is it just a dangerous distraction, a green illusion?
For decades, the message on climate has been pretty simple. Reduce, reduce, reduce. But what if there's another way to think about this? What if we could totally change our relationship with CO2 and start treating our biggest waste product not as something to just bury and forget, but as a valuable raw material we can actually recycle? Okay, so before we dive into the solutions, we've got to be real about the size of the problem. We're talking about a constant flood of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. And that's not just some abstract number, right? It's the engine driving the climate change and the wild weather we're all seeing more and more. Now, back in 2015, the world basically came together and drew a line in the sand with the Paris Climate Agreement. The goal is super clear. We have to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius, and really, we should be aiming for 1.5. That's the finish line the entire world is supposed to be racing towards.
So how are we going to get there? Well, the world is pretty much banking on two big strategies. The first one is one you hear about all the time, switching our whole energy system over from fossil fuels to renewables like solar and wind. But the second one, and this is our focus today, is the idea of actively capturing and removing the CO2 that's already out there.
So, how does this actually work? It kind of sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? I mean, how do you physically grab invisible gas molecules out of the air or from a smokestack? Well, it turns out there are a few different ways to do it.
It really breaks down into three main flavors. First, you've got CCS, that's carbon capture and storage. Think of it like putting a net over a power plant smokestack, catching the CO2, and then burying it deep underground. Problem is that doesn't work for things like cars. For that, you need DAC, direct air capture. This is like a giant vacuum cleaner for the sky, pulling CO2 right out of the air around us. It's an incredible idea, but it costs a ton and uses a whole lot of energy. And finally, there's CCU, or carbon capture and utilization. And that's the recycling option we were talking about, where we actually turn that captured CO2 into brand new stuff.
Okay, so once we've got the CO2, we're at a huge fork in the road. Do we just go for storage, basically burying our trash problem for future generations to deal with? Or do we utilize it? Do we turn it into a valuable feedstock for a whole new circular economy, where our waste becomes a resource?
So let's go down that second path for a minute. Because this idea of utilization, it's not just about cleaning up the air. It's about building a massive, brand new industry from the ground up.
And this is the question that could change everything, right? Can we actually reimagine CO2, not as this terrible pollutant, but as a fundamental building block for the future? A whole bunch of startups are betting everything that the answer is a big yes.
If you want to get a sense of just how big this could be, look at just one chemical, methanol. It's a key ingredient for, countless products we use every day. And that market is expected to be worth over $90 billion a year. And the wildest part? You can make it directly from captured CO2.
And look, it's not just methanol, not by a long shot. With the right chemistry, you can transform that captured CO2 into synthetic fuels for planes, specialized chemicals, acids, monomers to make plastics, even super advanced materials like carbon nanotubes. The possibilities, they're just enormous.
So, this all sounds amazing, right? A perfect circular solution where we clean the air and create wealth. But, and you knew there was a but coming, there is a catch, a huge, critical flaw that could make the whole thing backfire.
Because turning CO2 into these other things, it takes a ton of energy. And where you get that energy from, well, it changes everything. It's literally the difference between a real climate solution and a climate disaster.
Okay, get this. This one chart explains the entire dilemma. If you make that methanol using a process powered by natural gas, you actually release 3 times more CO2 than just making it the old-fashioned way. It makes the problem so much worse. But, and this is the absolute key, if you power that exact same process with clean energy, like wind power, you get a 58% reduction in emissions.
And this isn't just our take. As Dr. Ludovic Domi from Khalifa University puts it, the entire promise of this technology hinges on this one point. If you don't use sustainable, renewable methods, the final product just won't be low carbon. It's basically greenwashing.
Okay, so we've identified the giant flaw in the plan. Now what? How do we make sure this powerful technology actually helps our climate goals instead of hurting them? Well, building a system that's truly sustainable really comes down to 3 key things. First, and most important, the chemical reactions have to be powered by renewable energy. No way around it. Second, all the other stuff you need for the process, the catalysts and chemicals, they need to be sourced sustainably too.
And third, we have to keep innovating to find new materials that just make the whole process more efficient from the get-go.
If you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. The technology itself, the idea of capturing and reusing CO2 is neutral. It's only as green or as dirty as the energy system you plug into. That's it.
So that brings us back to where we started. Look, carbon capture is clearly not some magic silver bullet that's going to solve climate change all on its own. But if we can do it right, if we can build it sustainably, powered by the very clean energy transition it's meant to support, is it a critical tool we just can't afford to leave in the toolbox? That's the real challenge and the huge opportunity that lies right in front of us.